You're listening to AI Prism from Seoul Economic Daily.
It's Friday, May 8th. I'd like to share some thoughts about Industry Daily. Imagine spending billions of dollars to build the world's most advanced AI brain, only to realize, someone else controls the switch to turn it on.
Right.
Today, we're looking at this massive collision across Asia. So the race to build AI infrastructure is basically slamming right into the wall of U.S. and Iran geopolitical energy constraints.
Yeah, and we really have to start by looking at the immediate physical crisis in Taiwan. Because of the Strait of Hormuz blockade, Taiwan has actually lost its Qatari gas shipments. They are now sitting on just an 11-day buffer of liquefied natural gas, or LNG.
Wait, an 11-day buffer? That is terrifying,
Right.
especially when you realize Taiwan imports virtually all its energy, and almost a fifth of the electricity generated from that LNG goes straight into semiconductor manufacturing?
Exactly, about 18%.
So if that power trips, the chips inside the very device you're listening to this on become exponentially more expensive to manufacture. It's basically a hypercar running on fumes.
That is a perfect analogy. Yeah. And to prevent the factories at TSMC from going dark, Taiwan is forced into the spot market for LNG.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so instead of relying on stable long-term contracts, they're buying emergency gas on short notice at like double the price, while desperately looking for U.S. sources like the Alaska project just to diversify.
So Taiwan is facing this brutal physical shortage, but then Korea is experiencing more of a policy panic from the exact same geopolitical shock. MOTI, their industrial policy ministry, just froze wholesale oil price caps for a third consecutive month.
Right, they capped gasoline at 1,934 won per liter, which is drastically below market rate.
Yeah.
But doing that creates a severe problem for the upcoming Maximum Price Settlement Committee. They have to figure out how to compensate refiners for the massive losses they are being forced to absorb.
And that's highly legally sensitive because you're essentially dealing with the government forcing private companies to subsidize national inflation controls.
Exactly. I mean, if the state doesn't offer fair compensation, it borders on the unlawful seizure of private capital.
Right. And if the government gets that compensation math wrong, these mid-tier Korean refiners will simply throttle back production to stop the bleeding, which shrinks supply and makes the whole region's energy grid even more fragile.
Which makes Korea's next move incredibly structural and honestly slightly contradictory. Right in the middle of this energy panic, they just passed the AI Data Center Special Act.
Right, the ADC Act.
Yeah. The Ministry of Science and ICT, or MSIT, is now the single window for fast-tracking new data center permits so Korea can compete with Singapore and Malaysia.
Hold on, I'm confused. If Korea is already panicking over energy caps, why are they greenlighting massive new data centers without letting them secure their own direct LNG supply? Aren't they just plugging a supercomputer into a grid that's already failing?
Well, you've identified the exact structural tension. They're paving an AI highway, but intentionally keeping that power supply tied to the conventional regulated grid. They explicitly excluded an exception that would have allowed these non-capital region sites to secure direct gas.
So if the government isn't solving the power bottleneck, tech companies have to find software workarounds. Which brings us to Kakao. They just posted record first quarter revenue hitting 1.94 trillion won, which is about 1.36 billion US dollars. How are they adapting?
By abandoning the traditional monolithic AI models. So instead of relying on one giant energy-hungry model, Kakao uses an agentic AI architecture.
Agentic AI.
Yeah, think of a restaurant. Instead of hiring one genius master chef to cook every single fry and chop every onion, which is incredibly expensive and power intensive, you have a lightweight expediter.
Right.
And that expediter just routes simple tasks to specialized line cooks.
So that completely changes the hardware they need. They don't need massive training optimized servers doing all the heavy lifting. They just need inference optimized infrastructure, which just executes specific tasks quickly and consumes a fraction of the power.
It's a brilliant strategic hedge. But what's alarming is looking at how capital markets are behaving. Retail and institutional channels are aggressively piling into AI semiconductor ETFs, seemingly blind to these physical choke points.
Yeah.
I mean, KB Asset Management just retook ETF rank 3 with 32.47 trillion won, roughly 22.7 billion US dollars under management, driven almost entirely by massive semiconductor inflows.
Which means investors are blindly pouring billions of dollars into the exact hardware that is totally dependent on this vulnerable energy grid.
It brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. As AI models advance at breakneck speed, the ultimate ceiling for global tech might not be algorithmic limits at all, but rather the extreme fragility of natural gas shipping lanes.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought.
That's today's AI Prism, Industry Daily. This episode was produced with AI assistance based on Seoul Economic Daily reporting and reviewed by a human editor. AI Prism is a one i4A award-winning series. We'll be back tomorrow.
You've been listening to AI Prism from Seoul Economic Daily.